you entrepreneurs and small business people. You are listening to the Savvy Entrepreneur Show. I'm Doris Nagel, your host for the next hour. I'm an entrepreneur who's made a lot of mistakes. I truly want to help you out there not make some of those same mistakes. The show is also meant to inspire. I found at least being an entrepreneur confusing, sometimes lonely. You often have no idea if you're on the right track or not, or where to turn for good advice. So, to help with both those goals, I have guests on this show every week who are willing to share their stories and their advice, to bare their soul, if you will, and help you benefit. And my guest this week is Maria Onesto Moran. She is the CEO and founder of a company called Green Home Experts. And she's going to talk about what they do and her journey as an entrepreneur. She's been in business for a number of years, but has done some pivots along the way, which is, I think not atypical for lots of entrepreneurs out there. So with that introduction, Maria, thanks for being with me today. Welcome to the Savvy Entrepreneur Show.
Having me.
It's a delight to have you. So tell us a little bit about your business. What do you do and who do you do it for?
Well, as you said before, I own a company called Green Home Experts, and we are a company that supports the energy efficiency programs throughout the state of Illinois. Our customers are public utilities, and each one of them has programs that help businesses and residential customers save on their energy bills. And we typically help them with product supply, program outreach, and even some of the technician support for their programs.
Do most people even know about these programs? I mean, is this something you have to ask your utility about? Or is this something like I got something from ComEd the other day that said, apparently I use 57% more energy than my neighbors, which I was embarrassed about. But strangely, when I called ComEd, they said, oh, everybody gets those. Don't pay attention to that. So is that how it starts or some other way?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So I have also been the recipient of those letters. I think it's just a sort of a strong arm marketing tactic that I assure you we are not behind.
No,
if you look at your if you look at your ComEd bill every month, you'll see there's a line item for energy efficiency programs. So the programs are ratepayer funded. And they are available to us in a variety of different ways. We talk about ComEd a lot because they're the electrical utility for 70% of the state, but Ameren, Illinois also supports energy efficiency programs. So anytime you see something about a Nicor Gas energy efficiency program or ComEd or Ameren, typically there are smaller companies like mine behind the scenes who are really driving those programs.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So why do the utilities have these programs?
There's a variety of different reasons. Something that came into play for us a few years ago is the Future Energy Jobs Act, which basically changed the way that these energy efficiency funds were managed. They used to be managed directly by the state, and I don't think we have to spend too much time talking about how the state of Illinois used to handle its finances.
No, let's not go there. We'll
just keep going.
Yeah, right. This interview would go right off the cliff and keep going for the rest of the hour, I'm afraid.
Exactly. So luckily for us, FEJA, the Future Energy Jobs Act, said, you know what? We're going to have the utilities be responsible for this. And what that did was open up a lot of opportunities for companies like mine to help the state reach some pretty significant goals in terms of energy efficiency. And now we've also celebrated last year the passage of the Clean Energy Jobs Act, which has put into place some significant goals around clean energy like wind power and solar power. And so we'll see some of those changes coming down the pipeline.
Very cool. Well, let's go back to your business. How did you get started with this business? When did you start and why did you start it?
Well, I was very grateful that you started your show off talking about change because change is the name of our game. In 2007, I started a company that doesn't look much like Green Home Experts does today. My husband and I had recently purchased our first condo, and we were interested in making some home improvements and wanted them to be green. We wanted non toxic paint, we wanted a water efficient toilet, and you just couldn't find that stuff anywhere in store. You could
Wow.
find it online, but I didn't really want to be picking out paint colors online.
Yeah.
So I started Green Home Experts as basically a green building supply store, and we carried, recycled glass countertops, floor and cabinets. It was wonderful. The part that wasn't wonderful is I managed to start a green building company right at the start of the Great Recession and the housing crisis.
Oh boy.
So we very shortly had to add what I called a general store, which was a blast. We had green baby items, we had green cleaning supplies.
Oh my goodness.
We
Wow.
expanded into a garden center, which was always my favorite part of the shop, and had a great 8-year run being a green building and home supply store.
Very cool.
And then in just a weird fluke, I'm sure a lot of your listeners can understand this. We had somebody come to us and say, "Hey, could you distribute the supplies for some of these energy efficiency programs?" And Doris, I'm kind of embarrassed to say I actually said no. I was like, "Oh, I don't really know anything about that stuff." Since then, I have learned say yes and then figure it out later on.
That's a good mantra for lots of entrepreneurs. Just say yes and figure it out.
It has definitely served me well, and accounts for about 25% of my gray hairs. But we started distributing the products for this energy efficiency program, and it was wonderful. The work was easy, the margins were great. It was a great fit for us. And that program got bigger and bigger. And before you know it, having a showroom with interior designers on staff wasn't really fitting where the biggest revenue was coming in. We
Yeah,
needed a
interesting.
warehouse and a freight dock and people who wanted to pack boxes, not design kitchens. And it was a real strange time in my life because all of a sudden my dream had changed.
Do you literally have people that go out to do energy audits or look for leaks or test for inefficiencies in equipment and things like that? Or do you do other things?
We have done that work before. We've since, in the past, I would say 3 years, we've refined our work a little bit more to make our lives easier. And so what we really do is we distribute the product for the technicians who are going and doing that work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've really refined what we do to be product distribution. And so in 2015, I just kind of took a leap and said, you know what? I love the showroom. I love my staff. I love my customers. I'm still in touch with many of them to this day. But where we're making the money just doesn't fit the staff in the building that I have.
So, what did you do with all the inventory in the showroom and the people? Were you able to sell it to someone else or you just closed it?
Yeah, I sold off as much as I could. I have a friend in Wisconsin who's had a green building supply company. He started long before I did and is still in business. So I was able to give him a lot of our product. Sold off as much as we could. It was difficult to have to let my staff go. Is my right hand man at the shop back in up until 2015. He actually just rejoined our company this year.
Oh, wow. Good. Amazing.
Yeah, so we shut down the showroom. I took a minute to give birth to my third son, and then it was off to the race.
Wow.
So, yeah, we're in a warehouse in Lyons, Illinois, and spend our days packing boxes, delivering product. There's never a quiet day here at the warehouse.
Yeah. Well, talk about how you add value to and how the whole, I guess, energy um, audits or the whole energy efficiency programs that the utilities have. I mean, why do we have those? Why is this whole segment of the industry important? And what should people know about it?
Such a great question. At this point, I think everyone understands the importance of energy efficiency, clean energy. And, a lot of times we can only do so much, right? So there's only so much we can do in our homes. Some people are able to make some changes at their business or where they work. And can drive those programs because they have the marketing prowess, they have the trust from the public, and of course the know-how. One of the very important goals that was put forth through FIJA is that finally, for the first time, the utilities were going to do more than pay lip service to employing diverse businesses and diverse contractors to do this work. And
Ah,
I like to say that having our WBE certification gets us in the door.
tell
But
people if that don't know what WBE certification is.
we're a certified woman-owned business enterprise, which means that more than 50% of the business is owned by a woman. Lucky for me, because I don't like to share, I own 100% of the business.
Good for you.
Yes, it has its perks. So there really aren't any other minority-owned suppliers in Illinois who do what we do. Our customers are great at program design. They're great at getting the word out about energy efficiency. They're really engaged in community action agencies and social service agencies and schools to communicate with people about the importance of energy efficiency. Here's how you can do it. Here's why it's important.
Yeah.
And here are some products to help you get started. So they do all the hard work, and then we just ship the product at the end of the day.
Fantastic. Well, talk about your background. You've been an entrepreneur for quite some time and pivoted. You make it sound easy. I'm sure it wasn't at all, but what brought you to the place of saying, I want to have my own business?
Yeah, I can tell you it's not my sociology degree.
or maybe it was. I don't know because
Maybe.
finding other jobs is more difficult. I don't know.
Indeed. And it was a great field to study, but I had no idea what I was doing in college. And to some extent, I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, which is kind of refreshing. You know, when I was fresh out of college, had some really great employment opportunities that I was very passionate about. And I started to see a couple of things. There's a lot of molds in this world that I don't fit. And there are a lot of stupid rules that I can't get behind. And I don't know, I like doing things my way, right? So now we've learned on air that I don't like to share and I like to do things my own way. But I also think that there's just a lot of opportunities to think outside the box. And, maybe if I was a little bit less naive, I would have spent some time working at a Home Depot or a hardware.
Yeah.
But I was never going to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think the two most important qualities that I have as a business owner are perseverance and resilience. And those are qualities that were instilled in me from my parents. I do have a background with my grandparents and my dad both owning their own businesses. It's in my blood.
Yeah,
as we
helps.
speak, I have a picture from the 1940s of my grandparents and my dad in my office. So sometimes I have to look at that photo a few times a day and say, all right, just, I need you with me right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Very
there's a
cool.
lot to learn in the real world and like I said, making a ton of mistakes that just kind of get you to the point where you're at.
Yeah. So how did you get funding to get started? I mean, think back to, to when you were first getting your feet wet. How did you get funding?
Yeah, I was really fortunate because I went to my dad one night and I said, Dad, this is how much money I need, and this is the person I'm going to ask for it. Can you just help me go through the conversation?
Uh,
And he said, we're going to change the conversation. Mom and I are going to loan you the money and you're going to pay me back. And I have never worked so hard to pay anyone back as I did with that initial loan.
yeah,
I
yeah,
couldn't wait.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was incredibly lucky to get some seed money, and it's an opportunity and a privilege that I know a lot of people don't have. And I'm hopeful that one day it's something I can pass along to someone else.
Wow. Yeah. Well, talk about your your day-to-day life. I mean, what has been the hardest thing for you about owning and running this business? And I suppose that's changed because your business has changed a lot over the years, but I don't know, maybe there's some consistent themes about the things that are hardest for you.
Yes, it definitely changes. Certainly, the past 2.5 years have thrown us a few wrenches that no one ever saw coming.
Right.
One of the reasons that I stick with what I do right now is for my family. So I have the three best kids in the world. I'm not biased at all. And
Oh,
I love being able to be home with them in the morning, get them off to school, and then start my day and get as much work as I possibly can before the 3 o'clock school bell rings. And then I'm home with them for the rest of the day. So it is certainly challenging to try to be everyone to everything to everyone, at home and at work.
I'm
But
sure.
I've had a lot of practice doing it. And where I've had the best success is in hiring the best staff I could ask for. So from my management team all the way down, they really just rock at their jobs. I really have the best team I've ever had in 15 years. So my challenges come from, trying to be present for my team like I want to, trying to be present for my family like I want to, finding a way to carve out time for myself. But I've learned to let go. And on the other hand, my kids have grown up a little bit. So they don't need me like they used
That
to.
that does help a lot. I can personally attest to that. So that helps tremendously. Um, yeah. So what's a typical day look like for you?
Typical day is get up, get my three hooligans out the door, kiss my dogs, get to work. I'm trying to spend as much time as I can on high level work.
Yeah.
One of my faults is that I love to work and I love to get my hands on things.
Yeah.
So if we're shorthanded in the warehouse or if we just got clobbered with orders, my natural instinct is to just go in and help.
Yeah.
And that really does. If your boss is sealing up boxes, she's actually not really doing what she should be doing.
Yeah.
And so I would say I've worked really hard over the and that all really started, Doris, with COVID. So having to go all hands on deck and doing whatever needed to be done to keep things moving forward. I've had to step out of that and say, okay, it's time for me to be a stronger leader now. And so I like to work on best practices, helping fine tune our processes and procedures, communicating with my chief operating officer about, what's going on with the different programs that we support, making sure that my warehouse manager has what she needs in terms of personnel, equipment, you name it. So luckily for me, I really just try to spend the majority of my time supporting my leadership staff. And I love that work.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that because that is also another comment that I hear very consistently from the guests that I have on my show. And it's I think it's because most of us who start a business, we start it with an idea and a passion, and it's our baby in a lot of ways. It's one of our babies anyway. If we're also a mom, and
Definitely.
because of that, we love what we do. We're passionate about it, and it's very easy to get drawn into the day to day crisis du jour. And helping solve those is really, in some ways, it's an ego boost. It's a way of making sure you feel needed and wanted. And I think for a lot of us, it's very difficult to step back and say, um, yeah, I could do that and it would feel really good, but is that the best thing for my business and for the development of my team? Probably not. And I had one other entrepreneur just a few weeks ago say she stepped back from her business and she's like, I could leave for like 3 weeks and they don't miss me at all. And it was weird.
Hmm.
But she said, it was very freeing because I knew my business was growing in value because a
Hmm.
business that needs to revolve around the spider. And I've had a couple of other guests talk about how their business, when they decided to get out of it, just collapsed because they
Hmm.
were the spider in the web. And those businesses, hard to believe, but those businesses are not as valuable because how in the world do you transfer a business at any point to someone else if you were the spider in the web and you're getting out of the business? So it's I think it's a dilemma that's pretty common among lots of entrepreneurs. What have been some of your biggest challenges over the years that you faced?
Well, where do I start? I mean, initially, one of the challenges was that there was just nobody else doing what we were doing out there, which also brought us a tremendous amount of value. But it's not like we could look at the guy next door and say, hey, how are you doing this?
Oh, yeah.
And while I was fortunate enough to have an initial capital infusion, cash flow is no joke. Cash flow has always been a challenge. We've certainly learned how to manage the waves. Um, but it's tricky. Sometimes it feels like it's either feast or famine, and both of them come with their own unique set of challenges. It's very, I definitely felt when my kids were very young the the pull to be home when I was at work and the pull to be at work when I was at
Yeah.
home. I have to confess, I felt really validated and perhaps even a little bit vindicated when COVID hit and people started having to get used to working with their kids at home. Kind of wanted to scream and say, I've been doing this for 9 years. Welcome to
Yeah,
my world.
exactly.
There are some seasonal challenges that we're experiencing right now, like everybody is inflation, worker shortages, supply chain crunches. Those do feel rather temporary. I have to say, you know, the willingness to change is, I think, a really important part of being a business owner. But on the same hand, I've had to train myself not to get distracted by all the. So is this change for the sake of change, or is this change actually the right thing to do?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting. You have pivoted more than once, really, it sounds like. What's your advice on pivoting? We as we talked before the show for a few minutes, pivoting is probably one of the questions that I get the most questions about from listeners and from friends and colleagues and clients. It's probably one of the most common topics that my guests talk about. How do you know when it's time to pivot and just throw in the towel?
Hmm.
And, if you're pivoting, how do you know how far to pivot? I mean, so you've done this a number of times. Talk a little bit about what you've learned from that process and what advice you might offer to other people.
If someone were to read our company history, I think they'd get a little scared away. because in 15 years, we've made a lot of changes. And it's like, well, geez, when is she just going to make up her mind and do just this one thing? Because something we haven't actually talked about is that at the beginning of 2020, before COVID hit, we all kind of realized we're really good at shipping out our own customers' orders. Let's ship out orders for other companies. And so I started a sister business called GHE Fulfillment, which is a 3PL company. We're third-party logistics. We ship orders for companies who sell their products on their own websites. And so the change hasn't stopped. Luckily for us, people really ramped up their e-commerce in 2020, and so that
right. So fulfillment is pretty important if you're in e-commerce, because you can order all you want online, but if it doesn't show up at your doorstep, that's not really very good.
Exactly. The cool part about that, and I'll get back to your question, but the cool part about that is that, you really have to get the right product to the right customer on time. And so we have our best practices absolutely are shared between the two companies. Our infrastructure is stronger than it's ever been at Green Home Experts. And it's actually because GHG Fulfillment was really successful and required us to, step up our game a little bit. But to get over to your question, yeah, change is scary. Even when it's attractive, it's scary. I remember getting off the phone with my landlord when she told me she would let me out of my showroom lease and saying, "Oh, I just got what I asked for." And it was terrifying. But I have to say the one thing that I've always used to inform my decisions are my numbers. So put aside perhaps, or at least, it depends on, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but for a minute, let's just put aside how we feel about things. On a day like today, we might have to put aside some recession fears. We might have to set aside some uncertainty about the market, the housing market, you name it. And let's look at where our revenue really is coming from. And then let's look at where our profitability is coming from. And those aren't always aligned. So if you have good numbers, then you have a strong foundation to make data-informed decisions. And that's really what we use to drive. And of course, there's a ton of other things that go into it, right? But I believe that your numbers, your financials should be at the heart of your decision.
Yeah. So being able to step back and really try to be objective, avoid the "this is my baby" syndrome, and try to stay objective about it.
Oh gosh, I was a shopkeeper who had an awesome garden center, this phenomenal community that had, sort of built themselves around me and supported us. We taught canning classes, floral arrangement classes.
Oh
we were
my.
painting. I mean, we just did the coolest things.
Yeah.
Um,
For me, that would have been hard to let go of.
it was hard to let go of, Doris, but by that point, I had 2.9 kids who I knew were going to be very expensive to feed. Turns out that's true. And I wanted a certain lifestyle for us that I was hoping that our business could afford.
Yeah.
And being a shopkeeper wasn't it. I was working every day of the week and, giving my all at work. And I didn't have a whole lot left when I got home.
Yeah. I, like many other consumers who visit shops like yours, we have no idea of the personal sacrifice and the number of hours that it takes to run that. And frankly, how crushing it must be for some of those businesses to be put out of business essentially by big box stores.
Absolutely.
It's tough.
Absolutely. And so you bring up a great point, because while I used my financials to help inform our decision about going from a showroom to a warehouse, the other thing is that when I got into the business, you couldn't find this stuff anywhere. It wasn't at Home Depot. It wasn't at Target. It was nowhere to be found. And that was great for us.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden I had customers coming in and saying, well, this soap is $5.99 here, but it's $4.99 at Target.
I
Uh-oh. And then a Target opened in, I think we had already closed, but a Target did open in the town that our showroom was in. So, reading the market trends and listening to your customers, it helps
gotta,
solidify the decision.
yep, gotta stay very nimble and open. Maria, one of the things that you seem to be pretty able to do is to separate yourself and the numbers from the it's my baby kind of thing. To be able to look at those market trends with a unblinking eye and the numbers and say, I love this business, but it just can't continue like this. What advice do you have for helping people get past this is my baby, this is my arms and my legs, my part of me I can't let go. How do you get to the point where you can step back and look at your business more objectively, do you think?
When I had my first son, I remember my mom telling me, Maria, my job as your mom was to give you roots and wings. And I'm having a hard time with the wing part on my kids. I'll tell you that much. I like having them around. But actually, I truly believe that as a business owner, we have to give our business roots and wings. And so what that means is I am not my business. Believe me, there are a lot of times when I feel like I am.
Yeah.
But the value or the worth or the profitability of my business doesn't dictate my worth as a human being. My business successes are not all mine. In fact, my team is really responsible for most of our wins. And I've had a ton of failures and a ton of losses, but those also don't define me. What defines me is what I do when I'm knocked down. Do I get back up? Or what do I do after a big win, right? How do I go forward? I really believe that my job as a leader is to often be asking myself and my team, what's next? I know what it's like to feel like you are, blood, sweat, and tears. Your business just consumes you. It's actually a great feeling. It's something not a lot of people can understand. And so, on the other hand, it can actually be kind of isolating.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is, sometimes we love things so hard that they kind of die out on us. We kind of squash them. Right? I mean, like, I
Yeah, no,
joke, I
that's
put the
right. I
mother in
hadn't thought of it
smother,
that
but
way. Yeah.
yeah, loving what you do and being passionate about your business doesn't mean it's going to be successful. I know all about that. Um, I mean, come on. If the Bears won as many games as we believe in their ability to, the Chicago Bears would be champs, right? I
Yes,
mean, it's
but,
just
but
like
but when was the last time they were champs? I don't know. I think there was some guy named the Fridge or something
there
that was
sure was. Yes. Yes, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing too. What's wrong with changing what you're passionate about? What's wrong with saying that didn't work? I'm going to give this a shot. I mean, there's definitely a lot of liabilities there. We can't be changing our mind every week, right? And I would like to take a minute and assure all of my customers that GHE is not changing its business model anytime soon. We have definitely landed on what's working for us. But let's separate the person from the business, okay? Just tuck your ego behind your back for a minute and make informed decisions. Because here's the other thing. For me, the big threat has always been if this doesn't work, I have to go get a job. And Doris, I am telling you, I am wholly unemployable at this point. I'm ruined. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to stay the queen bee.
I love that, by the way. I saw that that's that Queen Bee is your title. I have mislabeled you as the CEO because I know that on your website you were the self-proclaimed Queen Bee.
Well, when you're responsible for printing the business cards, you can put whatever you want on there.
I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Well, it is very hard. I think a lot of One of my other guests put it this way. She said, we're often our own and worst enemies.
Mm-hmm.
We get in our own way a lot. And I think that's true not just of entrepreneurs. That's probably true of all of us human beings in whatever we're setting out to do, right?
Absolutely. And who cares? I mean, who cares if you make a change? People make job changes throughout their careers all the time.
Right.
If you are really making the best decision for you and the people in your universe, just go for it. Also, no one is paying as much attention to this whole thing as you are.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you feel looking back? You were surprisingly well prepared to do as an entrepreneur. And conversely, what did you feel like you were least prepared to do?
How many more hours do you have in the day?
Well,
All right, I'm going to start with the strengths. No one's going to outwork me. Basketball was my passion as a kid, and I was never the best kid on the court, but I was absolutely always the hardest worker. And I've also learned, like we talked about before, sometimes that can get in your way as a leader, but no one's going to outwork me. It's just not going to happen. I was the only employee of my company for the first year and a half. So I needed that resilience.
yep.
I can accept defeat pretty easily. I'm pretty good at losing and figuring out how to do better next time. And you need that. You need that in
Yeah.
January when there's 2 feet of snow on the ground and no one's coming into your shop door. It's hard.
That is resiliency, and that is one of the most important traits I've come to believe about being an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. I've also just been able to surround myself a little bit through coincidence and a little bit intentionally with phenomenal human beings in my life. So I've always had a really supportive network from my family. Could you imagine being married to me and supporting all these harebrained ideas? I often joke that my husband is the anchor and I'm the sail. And, it's not going to change. So just having a really supportive network, having people I can go to for help and sometimes to celebrate the wins too. On the flip side, what was I ill prepared for? It's a much longer list. I don't think anyone really understands how hard it is to own your own business until you do it yourself. If you're ready to get into business, are you ready to be unless you have some crazy access to capital and a strong, solid network around you, are you ready to be the bookkeeper, the janitor, the purchasing manager, the sales rep? Are you
The
ready to
social
be
media promoter, the marketer, right?
on 24/7? Yeah. And you really have to be really good at each one of those roles. That's bananas.
Right.
And it's a lot easier for me to talk about, work-life balance now, but man, my business absolutely consumed me for many years. And sometimes it still does. But to go back to talking about the willingness to not dive into your business, something that I've recently started to try focusing on is telling myself, this business can run without me getting onto the showroom or onto the warehouse floor. I have a phenomenal team. We have great procedures. Maybe I should just pat myself on the back for getting us to that point and
Yes.
enjoy
Yes.
the second cup of coffee.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it sounds like you're very conscious about making some of those decisions. And because, boy, that knee jerk reaction, I don't know about you, but it's certainly been strong with me to just want to go out there and help out, roll up the sleeves, of course.
But you're right. It's actually not good for anybody.
Yeah. Maria, how do you see your business growing in the next, say, 3 to 5 years? What will it look like if you're successful?
Well, I can tell you the only thing that's actually limiting our business growth right now is our physical space. We are busting out We're busting at the seams in our warehouse. We currently occupy about 16,000 square feet in our warehouse.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'd love to have at least 50% more of that. And Doris, just in case any of my staff listens to this, I hear you guys. I'm trying.
Yeah, well, the one
It's
good thing is
challenging.
there's probably, well, I don't know about warehouse space. There's certainly a glut of commercial office space, but
Yeah.
maybe not that much warehouse space these days.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So we're definitely experiencing some limits along those lines, but I actually am working on, solving that problem. It's just sometimes it takes a little bit longer to solve these problems than I wish it would. But we have phenomenal relationships with our clients. So here's something that I just love about my work. We don't have a big beefy marketing budget. We don't go to trade shows. I don't have outside sales reps. Somehow I struck gold and was able to land in an industry where the relationships that you have with your clients are, the most important thing that we have. We have a diverse group of phenomenal businesses who rely on us. I often say we're responsible for shipping their success. So the fact of the matter is, our clients really could not be successful in their programs without us being, the product side of what they do.
Yeah.
And so we spend time nourishing those relationships, making sure that we're adding value to the relationship, making sure that they understand, what we're trying to do for them, communicating with them, just keeping a really open relationship. And at times that those conversations have had to be very frank and difficult to swallow. But how lucky am I to have customers who feel comfortable in coming to me and saying, we need to fix this. What we actually spend more of our time doing is going to our customers and saying, hey, you know what? We actually know what we're doing here. And here's a couple of tweaks that we should make in the process to make this better for you. I love that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
go back to your
I don't know, utilities strike me as kind of a unique breed of customers. I mean, they're
Mhm.
I don't want to say slow to change, but yeah, maybe slow to change.
Hey, you said it, girlfriend, not me.
Yeah,
They're big organizations, right?
right,
And they have a ton of accountability to ratepayers and
right,
lawmakers.
right.
One of our core values is versatility. So, our core values here are integrity, versatility, commitment to excellence, growth minded, and having fun. And versatility means one of our clients comes to us and says, we need to get this done. It's going to take us a year to figure out how to do it. Hey, Green Home experts, can you do it? And 85% of the time, we're like, yeah, it'll be done next week. We got you.
Yeah, yeah. The ability being nimble is probably not nimble is probably not an adjective that's been applied to most electric and gas utilities, not the larger ones. Maybe some
Right.
startup solar thing, yeah, maybe, but they're almost. My very first job out of college, actually, I worked for the State Public Service Commission and was forced to, they every time the utilities would come in, they do these rate testimony. So every time what you pay as a utility customer is determined by your state public service commission, and they have hearings, and the utility will trot in and say, well, we need to have a rate increase because la 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 la, because Maria's business is costing us a lot of money, and we whatever. And then the state public service commission will say, yeah, not so much. We'll let you have a little bit here, but not all this.
Right.
So anyway, so that was my job, my working in that agency, my very first job out of college. But what I could say is, as a result of that sort of symbiotic relationship almost between the Public Service Commission and the utilities, is that some of these utilities are almost more like a quasi state agency
Mm-hmm.
than a they're closer to that anyway than they are to Amazon or some startup business,
Right.
right?
Right. Doris, I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and I'm still learning so much about you. When you write your memoir, let me know because I'd love to read the book.
Well, I don't know. It would. Well, thank you. I'm very flattered, but and it's not why I do the show, but I've sort of tacked my way through life, and I have learned so many different things along the way. And I think again, I'm living, breathing proof of what you were saying, Maria, which is don't be afraid to change. Don't be afraid to jump into the unknown. Things will turn out okay. There
Yeah.
may be some tough times, but believe in yourself. We're all capable of so much that we need to believe in ourselves, and we need to surround ourselves with a great network of people. Speaking of the great network, I want to ask you one last question before we wrap up about that. You have mentioned a few resources that have helped you along the way, at least before we started the show. And then you also mentioned another one to me in passing, Founding Moms. Talk about how you found resources and a network of people to help ground that sail that's Maria Onesto Moran.
Oh man. Well, yes, I am absolutely fortunate to have such a supportive network professionally and personally. The Founding Moms is this phenomenal online community that is basically exactly what it sounds like. It's a membership community for mom entrepreneurs, and the woman who owns it, Jill Salzman, she also provides a ton of valuable content to her members, like marketing and finance, and just great tools on how to keep things up and running. But also then there's a shared community of members who can bounce ideas off of each other, or search for resources. It's a phenomenal resource.
Is it focused on any kind of industry, or is it more focused on the kinds of issues that CEOs and founders who are moms are going to face, or just whatever comes up?
Sometimes it feels like whatever comes up. There's a really diverse group of members. I know accountants, graphic designers, people who have product-based businesses, business coaches. There's just people who have tons of different businesses that are in the group. And of course, then they also have a diverse background personally. Some of them have real little ones, all the way through, moms of kids who have left the nest.
What advice would you offer about how to find some of those resources and how to lean on them in the tough times?
Luckily for us, the internet can bring us pretty much anything that we want, right? For better or for worse. So definitely, if you're looking for resources for your business, there are trade groups, specific to certain industries that can be helpful. There are a ton of publications like Inc., Entrepreneur Magazine, where you can start to read about some market trends, or, you name it. And for me, I did receive some coaching at the beginning of my business from the Women's Business Development Center, and I was able to take some good nuggets from there. And the nice thing is, once if you're starting out in your business, if you start to believe in what you're doing, other people are going to believe you too, right? I mean, they don't know any better. And so if you can get, similar to what you just said, I've learned if you can fake it till you make it, people start to enter your orbit who need to be in your universe.
Wow, that's kind of zen,
Well, Doris, my kids are back to school and my house is empty during the day, so I have a lot of reason to be zen right now.
Last question for you. Well, last couple of questions. We haven't talked about you being a female CEO and founder in a world that probably there aren't that many women. And in fact, you even alluded to the fact that because you're a woman owned certified business that has helped your business grow. Any advice for women entrepreneurs that you've picked up along the way, or particularly for women maybe who are in an industry that there's not as many women out there in?
Yeah, I mean, again, anyone can fake it till they make it, right? Man, woman, or anything else. I think one of the biggest challenges that I've had to overcome that I think a lot of women can understand is we don't need to be everything to everyone, but we can manage all those people. I mean, I remember when I had my showroom, I would have people come in off the street trying to sell me something and say, "Is the owner here?" And I'd look at them like, "Why wouldn't you, like, what?" And I always said, "No, sorry, they're not here right now."
I'm sorry, but that's just hilarious.
Oh, it's one way to put it.
I would have probably tried to trip them on the way back to the car or something.
Well, I always had a mallet for my paint cans behind the desk, and there were a few times I was tempted to use it, but I didn't. I don't hear it as often as I used to, but I certainly have people who either say or have said, "Is this your husband's business, or does your husband work in the business?" And I thought, I can guarantee no one has ever asked my husband, "Oh, does your wife help coach your football team? Does your wife teach with you?" It does. It actually makes my blood boil. It makes me crazy.
Yeah.
So, my advice to female business owners is probably really similar to what it is to anyone who's really trying to achieve any goal. The first person you have to believe in is yourself. And if you really believe that you can do what you're setting out to do, other people are going to start to believe in you as well. And we don't have to be everything to everyone. And it's okay to admit defeat. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to change things that aren't working. Again, I've learned actually no one is really paying as close attention to any of this as we are.
Yeah. Right.
And most of us get into business for ourselves to experience the freedom and the fulfillment of what we do and of being our own boss. And if you're not feeling free and fulfilled, you're the one who has to make the change.
Yep. Great advice. All right. Well, I promise last question. Share with people your website or how to contact you if there's something you said that sparks an interest for them.
Yeah, thanks, Doris. Our company website for Green Home Experts is ghexperts.com. Our website for GHE Fulfillment is a real simple ghefulfillment.com. And you can contact me through either one of those websites.
Fantastic. Maria, thanks so much for being with me today. It was really fun to have you on the show. And you are a tower of strength, woman. I tell you, just quiet, confident strength. And so it was just a pleasure to hear about your story. And I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to be on the show this week.
Thank you so much, Doris. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate you getting the stories out. And, as a listener, I'm definitely taking away some nuggets as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thanks to all my listeners. You're the reason I do this. Now, before I wrap up this week's show, I want to put in a couple of shameless plugs of my own. First, you can find lots of free, helpful information and resources on my consulting website, which is globalocityservices.com. You can find all sorts of tools, ebooks, lots of an archive of lots of the past Savvy Entrepreneur shows that are chock full of tips and helpful information. You can check out my new dedicated YouTube channel, which is called the Savvy Entrepreneur Radio Show. And there you can listen to and even download all sorts of past episodes of the show. I invite you to listen into some of the past shows. I have had and have been blessed with so many amazing guests. You will, I promise you, enjoy most of the listens and come away with some great tips. So follow my channel, listen to some of the episodes, comment on them. And if you follow it, you'll be sure to be able to catch future shows as they're posted. You'll be supporting the work of the Savvy Entrepreneur and also lots of your fellow entrepreneurs who will appreciate your help in getting the word out about all the great things they're doing. Thanks again for listening. Tune in next week at 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern Time. I'll have another great guest and topic. But until then, I'm Doris Nagel, wishing you happy entrepreneuring.